Hey, what's up guys, Jamie here, and today we're doing a video on HTTP GET in Angular. Alright, and we're just going to do a simple example where we're going to get an example object like this, and then display it out on the screen using the HTML right here. So these are the two values inside of our JSON object. So let's get into the code. Alright, and I just have a blank Angular project here. If you need your own Angular project, I have a whole tutorial on getting started in Angular so that you can get set up and follow along if you want. Make your own project, but assuming you already have a project, let's continue on writing the code. Alright, so the first thing I gotta do is I gotta go inside of my module file and then import the httpClient module like this from Angular common HTTP, and then add that to my imports down here as well, httpClient module. Okay, it's gotta be the module, not the HTTP client. The HTTP client is what we're gonna use to inject into the component. Our main app component right here. So I'm going to inject it like this: private HTTP client, like that. Okay, and then that's just going to be imported up here. Alright, then all we got to do is just inside the constructor, I'm going to call this.http.get, and then I'm going to pass it just some URL. I found this URL online which will return just kind of a pattern of JSON based on the route here that we pass to it. So this is good for testing, but you can use whatever URL you want to. And this is getting a little bit long, so I'm actually going to factor this out into a string. So I'm just going to call it URL equals that, and then we can put the URL in here just so it's a little bit easier to read. It's actually this.url. And the reason we need to call .toPromise right here is because get returns an observable, and so there's no real point in observing a get request. Like, you're just getting the data once, so might as well just turn it into a promise. And then once we get the resulting data, for now I'm just going to log it out. So I'll just console.log the data out like that. Alright, and so what this is going to do is when our app component is created, then it's going to immediately request the data from this URL and then console.log it. So let's go check that out. Okay, so here we are on our page, and then immediately it logged 1, 2, and then key value. If you're wondering where this data came from, it's from that URL. So 1, 2, and key value. So it just kind of pairs up the values in the route, which is kind of interesting. That's what this test URL does. So you can use this for testing if you want to. And also, you may have noticed that this route is HTTP, but the HTTP module can handle HTTPS as well. No problem. It's just called HTTP to be like more generic, not saying specifically that it can't handle secure requests. Alright, and then let's say that we wanted the values in the JSON to appear in the actual HTML on the page here, instead of just my lonesome little advertisement for my website. Well, how we could do that is just make an array here called items or something like that, and set it equal to the empty array at first. And then we could simply iterate over all the items in the data. Okay, so the way that we can iterate over the JSON object called data is using a for loop like this. So we're going to iterate over every key in data, and then we're going to check to make sure that that key is actually a real property of the data. You just kind of always have to do that when you're iterating over a JSON object. And then in the case that it is, I'm just going to say this.items. I'm going to say push the value at that key, so data sub key. So this is how I retrieve the value at that key. Alright, and so basically this just fills up my items array up here with all of the values inside of the JSON object. Okay, then inside the HTML, I'm just going to make a div and then repeat this div using ng4 for every item of items, and then I'm just going to display the item like this. So we'll have one div for every item in items, and it's going to show that item. Alright, so refreshing here, we've got 2 and value. So these are the actual values inside of our JSON object. See, 2, and then value like that. If you haven't already, be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. It really helps out the channel. Also, leave a comment down below. What did you guys think of the video? Do you have any issues with this? Have any questions? Happy to help. And with that, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.